Welcome to Empower Her Radio, the space for powerhouse women ready to step into their next level of abundance, purpose, and personal freedom. I'm Dr. Corey Winn, a high-performance coach, doctor of physical therapy, philanthropist, and business consultant. I help ambitious women align with their highest calling, expand their wealth and impact, and create a life that feels as good as it looks. If you're a high-achieving woman who's built success yet finds yourself craving more alignment, more purpose, more ease, you're in the right place. Here, we bridge the gap between ambition and fulfillment. Through transformative conversations and proven strategies, you'll gain the courage to step into the fullest expression of you. Build a powerhouse business that aligns with your expertise and divine gifts, and lead your life, both personally and professionally, with unshakable confidence, worthiness, and compassion. This is about expansion, legacy, and owning your power unapologetically. You already have everything inside of you to create a life of unlimited possibility. It's time to unlock it. Welcome to your next level. Let's dive in. Okay. Hello, everyone. Today, I'm joined by someone whose journey is nothing short of a cosmic leap. From homelessness to the moon, literally. Jennifer Gligoric is a certified business coach, podcast host, and fractional consultant with over 20 years of experience transforming clinic and service-based businesses from the inside out. But beyond her titles, Jennifer is a living, breathing example of what it means to rise with resilience and lead with integrity. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
I am so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So tell us about this journey. It is a huge one, and I want our audience to really hear kind of from beginning to end. How did you end up where you are?
Well, it it is a long journey. I don't want to date myself about how long it was, but it is. I feel like I've lived several different lives. I think most people live several different lives, which is just crazy. But I grew up in a really great family. I mean, if you met my family now, you'd think that I had like a silver spoon in my mouth. But during my teenage years, I was homeless. I became homeless. I lived in Covenant House Shelter because it's for kids that are 21 and younger. Went to college, being homeless. So that was a trip. In fact, I was telling someone, they were like, well, how did that work? Did the shelter do it? And I said, well, the shelter had, at that time, they had, you could only go for so many weeks. And then you were kicked out for like a week. Mm-hmm. So people wouldn't, but it was like crazy. They're kicking out kids, right? But that's the way it was back then. So, and then you just had to do whatever. And I was like, yeah, there were sometimes I would like literally sleep in the bushes on campus. And then I'd get out. If anyone saw me, I'd be like, yeah, crazy night, but I'm going to make class, try to like, let's be cool about it. And yeah, I got through that and then had different lives to where I was now. I was very lucky before that happened that my mother was an incredible businesswoman. So she owned the largest, before she got sick. She got sick for many years. Addiction is terrible. Now she's been sober for over 30 years. So I can talk about it now, even though that's her journey. But at the time, it was like everybody in my life crapped out or went through something like that. So I didn't have any adults there. But my early years, which I think really saved me from being trafficked or something horrific, I had a good upbringing with people who loved me and I had self-worth. And so I worked at a young age. She had a staffing agency, the largest one between Houston and Galveston is where I live now. And I had to do things. I would go and set up women on the IBM Selectric to do their typing tests. And then I would do their little spelling test. I mean, it was like way back in the day, right? And so I had skills that a lot of the kids and even adults that I ended up like meeting really didn't have. That I was able to pull upon. And it's just weird. I think mindset had a lot to do with it. And I got sick of myself. I got sick of my hate because there was a point where I really did hate everyone. Why is this happening to me? I'm just a kid. This isn't fair. I mean, resentment towards the planet, right? I
Right.
mean,
Oh
just
yeah.
I hated everyone. And at one point I was like, man, I'm sick of myself. And it was from meeting other people in that who like got over it and they were still kind of positive. And I'm thinking, how could you? But something inside me said, well, because they weren't hateful little witches, like they weren't haters. And you got to get out of that. And so, and I did get out of it and I started being grateful.
Mhm.
And I think it was seeing horrific things made me more grateful that it wasn't me.
Well,
So,
and I totally hear that. And I also want to honor all of the feelings that you had because I'm sure there were at times it was really awful and it wasn't something that you planned. And I love that you bring all of that up because there is a resilience there. We do have to turn around at some point and say, okay, I'm done. I don't want to live like this anymore, either figuratively or literally. Um, but also honor the pain that you went through for how many years? I mean, how long were you homeless?
I would say it was like good 3 years
Mhm.
in and out. I mean, it was either homeless or just not really secure in any housing. Like I mean, I wasn't like literally in a dumpster the whole time, although I had done that. I know what it's like to literally not have a place and just to hide somewhere. But young, you go out, right? Like, let's go out and let's do something. We meet someone. Hey, can I crash at your place?
Right.
So that happened a lot more than than the other things. And then of course the shelter was a backup when I had time there. But it was, yeah, it was still, it's weird to say. Someone asked me about it and I was like, in some ways those were really great times. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I mean, even though you meet bad adult people, there are bad adult people that prey on kids,
Yeah.
especially young girls that are not, I wasn't I wouldn't say a beautiful girl, you don't see that, especially with no makeup, and I'm homeless, but I wasn't hideous, you know what I mean? They prey upon you. But there was something about me, like, I think the way I spoke, like they thought she might have people, she might tell, right? And Tina Fey has a really great quote in a book that she wrote where she said, it's not the beauty that draws a predator's eye, it's the damage.
Mhm.
And I think that helped. I wasn't so far gone with whatever the anger and all that was. But yeah, you know I'm kind of lucky because I was normally a positive person.
Mhm.
I think if you're not, and I wasn't struggling with a personality disorder or a disability or addiction, right?
Mhm.
Despite the fact that drugs were kind of it was Miami in early 90s. I mean, literally
Right.
you'd go to a bar and there's, any drug you wanted was on the
I say,
counter.
pick one. Yeah.
It was like pick, that's really what it was. It was just a totally different world. But it just doesn't really appeal. So
Right.
like I got lucky on some things like that. I think I forgot your initial question
No, that's fine. I love this.
though.
Can you look back to like a specific turning point in that journey during college that kind of catapulted you to where you are now? I mean, you talked about being positive and getting through and having resilience, but is there that like one moment of, okay, I'm done, I'm moving forward, and this is where I'm going?
Well, no, there was a lot of them because I met people, I met angels that pushed me on the way. So I remember once, and this is just a terrible story, but I was outside of a Hojo's, a Howard Johnson's,
Mhm.
right? It was on A1A right there in Fort Lauderdale. And they had like a diner. All Hojo's had a diner, like a Denny's or something that was attached to them. The hotels would go. And I was there and it had a lot, of course, windows right across from the beach. And I was in there looking at the windows in it was probably my most hateful moment at that time, and hating all the families that were in there eating. And I finally said, no one can stop me. And I hadn't eaten for a couple of days. And a family got up and there was just so much food they left back. And I was so pissed off about it. I walked in, I sat down at their table and I started eating all their leftovers because I was just hungry. And I was like, screw these people. I'm hungry. Like, what are they going to do? They paid for it. You're just going to throw
Right.
it away. Why shouldn't I be able to eat it? And I remember in my thing thinking, I'm going to stab someone if they stop me, because I was really hungry, right? And this waitress came up and gave me some crumpled bills, and she goes, "You can eat it, but then you have to go. Don't cause a big scene." I'm like, "I'm just eating." And I remember looking at her with such hatred. And in my mind, like, that lady did nothing to me. She was giving me her tip money. She's a waitress at a Hojo's. Like, now I'm thinking it's not like she's richy rich, but I remember, just I hated everybody. I took that money and I left, and I was so mad, and then walked, and then I just started bawling. Like, oh my God. Like, who am I? That was one of the things where I just got like sick of myself. And then I wanted to give her back the money. And then I thought, no, I don't want to go in there, what they call police or something. I'm doing really good. I hadn't gotten paid at a job because I was working the whole time. And I was working a pretty important job. I worked for an ad company, and I called on luxury ads, and I had like 3 outfits. And thank God for the beach and the beach things. I would literally wash my outfits out at the beach, and then I would get them, and of course it would dry by I would lay them out in a place. Thank God nobody took them, because I'd come back to that place. It was really crazy. And but that was like, I can't do that again. And then I just worked harder at work. And then that never happened again after that.
Mhm.
So it was like that one. And then I had a counselor who was connected with Covenant House, and she was originally from like Haiti. And of course, I was from Texas, rural coastal Texas, and I had a big accent back then. And I was working really hard to be like more professional so I could get these jobs. And Miami was at the time, Broward County was had the most millionaires like per square mile or something. It was like the richest county in the country at that point. So
Mhm.
like, I'm starving, but there's Lamborghini, Maserati, crazy disparity between the ultra rich and then the ultra poor, right? And she asked us a question where she had said, "Now, imagine if you could put 10 people in a room. How could you tell if who was successful?" She used the word successful, or not rich, but successful. And so we all said various different things of why we thought, people could be successful. And then she said, "Okay, now what if you took off all their clothes?" Because we were saying material things. Well, they would have
Right.
a watch, they would have shoes, they would have a this. And then, it was like kind of stuff. Well, how they spoke,
Mhm.
how they presented themselves. If you had no makeup, no hair, like literally everybody's out of the shower, they've been hosed down and naked, how could you tell? And
Right.
then I was like, oh, well, how they present. And I remember how she spoke, and I worked really hard on my speech. And then, the concept came in. I don't know if she said this concept, but later on, I went to talk about this because of what happened to me. And I thought, and I started getting, people were like, "You're not authentic. You've got to use this accent. You've got to do this." And I started really pushing against it because of my own experience. And I said, no, 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 don't teach people that, because that we have this universal thing here in America. And I realized that other countries may hate it or whatever, but we developed a system that you saw where it didn't matter what you looked like, what color was your skin, what was your orientation, or anything about you. But if you use American business speech and the American business uniform, you would be accepted anywhere universally. You could show up at a suit and walk to a hotel in Dubai or London or anywhere. And if you spoke that sort of way, you would get accepted. You would get a room. They would not shun you like they would shun the girl that was sitting there at that point with her twang and everything else. Because there's perception now. It wasn't back then, but now everything is very different. But a perception was, well, as long as you had, blonde hair, they're going to let you know. That's not true. The people are very classist, especially I've lived in other countries now, and I'm going to tell you, they listen and they see and they judge and they put you in a box. And so if you had that, they didn't do it. It was this incredible key that opened up things no matter who you were. And I don't want to take that key away from other generations. So I talk about that a lot. it isn't changing yourself. You can still, be proud to be German or Czech or Ugandan or wherever you're from. But if you have that, then it's like this universal key that you'll be more accessible to more people will be able to listen to you. If you have something of value, they'll be able to digest it because they've learned, this one thing. And I wish people talked about that more, because I think knowing that key, you talked about like what got you out of that, learning that, working on myself, and then working in business, particularly, that was my key.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been my key, going up. And it's been an amazing experience.
I love that so much. And so much of what you just said is what I heard from my dad a lot of my life. My dad is from very, very rural North Carolina, very thick Southern drawl. And he said, Corey, I worked on myself. I watched, I took professional development classes and business classes to gain the skills. Does he still have a Southern accent? Absolutely. But he's well read. He shows up in a suit. He makes eye contact. So all of those things that you said, I mean, and opening the doors just from you having been homeless and having somebody teach you those things, to wear a suit and show up well and speak this way. How many doors do you think that opened? Just that one conversation
Countless.
with your counselor.
Countless. It was life changing to do that, but to do the work. I mean, it's you hear a lot of amazing things from amazing people, and we can discount a lot of them. Someone could said, "Oh, she's some counselor, some shelter." You like now they'd go like, "Oh, where did she go to school?" It was, it wasn't Columbia, it wasn't this, like discounting it. And I'm going to tell you, if you keep your mind open, you could be talking to someone that other people would just discount because they're not, an influencer, right? Or
Right.
somebody like that. And you're going to get advice that's going to change your life. You have to be open to that and that experience for other people. That's why I love podcasts, because you can hear voices you normally wouldn't get here, because what they promote, what they amplify, and I talking about the media and there is this thing out there that is just spewing out a lot of stuff that's very toxic.
Mhm.
And but podcasts are a way to get around that. That's why I love being on podcasts, because you can get such authentic, real voices, and there's so much hope that's out here that you don't hear really anymore. It's conform, be a cog, think this, do this, and no.
Well, and I love that so much because I mean, I grew up in the South too, you know, prim and proper and dress a certain way and act a certain way. And I remember even as a little kid feeling so confined by this box of how I should be and what I should look like and how I should act and what I should grow up to be. And I was like, why do I not fit in with any of this? And now I can look back and be so thankful that I didn't, be so thankful of all of the experiences that I had growing up, but also exactly what you just said. You may have heard something 10, 15, 30 times, but as long as you're open, the moment that you really need to hear it again may come from the most outlandish source or the most, the quietest voice in a room that you may have discounted if you weren't open to it prior.
Yeah, you have to be open and you have to be ready, but it also has to be the right time. Like if you have any faith, maybe if your faith is the universe or God, whatever your faith is, I would say it was God would say, okay, now you're going to hear it. But if you're not really open to it, it'll get louder and louder until it becomes painful. And then you'll get the painful lesson that you never really wanted you to have.
My husband and I laugh that I'm that person who like beats my head against the wall and still like wants to do my own thing and wants to do it my way until the like Las Vegas show lights are flashing in my face from the universe to say, no, this is the path. It's like, oh, okay. I'll listen now.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as doesn't get to the painful part of it. That's the ones I hate, the ones that I'm like, oh man, I just paid the idiot tax because I should have listened to that one sooner. Man,
Love
you're
that.
just kicking yourself a little bit, but we all go through it. We had where I work right now, we do a meeting every morning, a huddle. It's like 15 minutes, and we talk about wins And then we'll talk about some of the, it's going well, usually it's not really even business stuff. It's like wins. And then we're like, okay, that's great. And then we talk about a core value. We have like 5 core values, and then someone does it. And so I had core value today, and which is where I usually get about once every 3 weeks. And I picked grow or die, which is one of our core values. And what I talked about was that grace is not achieved from never falling. Grace is achieved in the act of picking yourself up and continuing to do so. So the good thing about that is that even when we don't listen, eventually when we do, we're like, oh, okay, and we we get up and we go, then it could be, then we start to get it, and we make progress towards our goals. But yeah,
I love that. Now, with what you do in coaching and consulting, you help clinics and service-based owners kind of scale their businesses. What are some of the biggest challenges that the businesses have faced, or kind of traps that you kind of help people get out of?
I would say the biggest thing, because I did crisis intervention for almost 20 years, right? But now I work mostly in healthcare, doctors. It's chiros, dentists, med spas, hormone clinics, weight loss, and stuff like that. The biggest thing with service-based owners is that their numbers are their friend, and to stop being afraid of the numbers. And the numbers can relieve them of the stress, because the numbers help them make better decisions. Even if they aren't numbers people, they can still track and they can still understand it. So those are 2 different mindsets, right? Your service, I'm going to help someone, I'm going to dig in, I'm going to, get them well. And then, well, here are some spreadsheets. That they tend to not like that, but most entrepreneurs don't like that. They want to be out doing. And I would say that's a big trap for them. And then the mindset that they need to be in to be an entrepreneur. They're still stuck in wanting to serve and the job they created for themselves. They're like, I know how to do this, right? So I can make a company where I do this and I'm working for myself. Only they've made themselves their worst boss. They never take a day off. They don't have any benefits. They're just ran into the things because they've never thought about what the difference between being the CEO mindset and then their job mindset, which are 2 totally different ways to look at it. And then they really never think about that shareholder mindset.
Oh yeah.
Which is completely different. And so once you realize you have to put on your other hat and expand your thinking into what that actually looks for you, and what that would look like for your company to have that, because for some people they can't do it. And if they can't, they need to get the person who can, because that's what the business needs. And that can hit a lot of limiting beliefs and butt hurt, right? You can butt hurt your own feelings. Like, I thought I could be this and this and this. Nobody can be it all. So you have to pull out to be where you need to be. And then all of a sudden they start making exponential growth. And I take them through a very hard 4-month accelerator program. I mean, I'm kicking their butt every day. They're working like 1.5 to 2 hours a day on it. But, that's why we 2 to 10x their business within 4 months. And a lot of it is their work. They're doing all this work that they've never done before, thinking about things in a different way, tracking numbers that they've never tracked, using scripts, getting sales help. You're all salespeople. I don't care if you're a doctor or if you're a florist, you're a salesperson.
Well, and that, for being somebody who's in healthcare, all of this is so incredibly important when you move out and launch into the entrepreneurial world, because it's not taught in grad school. Like you said, I know how to be a physical therapist. I didn't have any business experience until I invested in myself for a business coach. And everything that you've talked about is so incredibly valuable to also help people recognize when we treat patients, we usually leave the room and someone else handles the billing. So until you are face to face with, oh, I have to ask for my services to be paid for, it is a huge mindset shift, and one that people often don't even recognize is going to be an issue.
Yeah. And if you can't do that, do a
undervalue
handoff. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to over.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, always, if you can't do it, if you're like, I can't, radical honesty and acceptance is the key to change. So if you can't, then do a handoff. Get that person who has no problem talking about money. And then what you do is you walk into you just say, you take your patient, walk them to that person and say, Jane, I was talking to Judy here. Judy needs XYZ program. This is how much it's going to cost for her. And we agreed to blah, 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 blah. Now, Judy, here's Jane. Jane's going to help you get all set up. And I would like to see her back in a week, whatever that handoff is. That way there's no miscommunication, because I'm going to tell you, Judy's going to tell Jane something completely different. Doc said I could pay $5 a month every single time, because Judy's about the game. She's going to go spend $8,000 on a cruise that she doesn't need. I know, because I had a travel agency that I closed during COVID, and I put more people who are on Medicaid and Medicare on $5,000 to $10,000 cruises all day long, because they valued that. It was a one-time thing. But yet healthcare, something that could take them out of pain, transform their lives, really change them. No, let me think about it. And there is a way to get those same people to invest in themselves the way they'll invest in a cruise. So don't ever think they don't have the money, they can't do it. They can. You'll need to charge more, and you need to get them to an end goal rather than making them stay on the insurance loop, because they won't get well.
As soon as you invest in yourself at a high level, you do the work. You push yourself to become a better person. Value behind courses and things are so incredible when you have to pay for them, because you have said, okay, well, I have put this money into that. I'm doing this.
I have a coach for me, and I have a mentor that I pay.
Oh yeah.
And so, I have to do it. They say, doctor, heal thyself. Well, when I don't get that done, I start getting rusty. I'm not, you have to invest in yourself in any sort of profession, I think, when you're helping others.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Or you're not an island, or then you get lonely and it's depressing. Who's going to help you be accountable? Who's going to celebrate your goals with you on that level, like a coach or a mentor will? If you get, you need to get a good one. But for many entrepreneurs, they are just, they're on this little island. They do something great, and they won't even give a yay to themselves. Stop doing that to yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and you also talk a lot about ethical entrepreneurship. What does that mean to you and your company?
Well, it's just a way of doing business where you put value into the people, right? And so it's right now we just have a dearth of unethical entrepreneurship. 100 out of the 100 largest economies on planet Earth in 2025, 51 are corporations and only 49 are nations. And when you think about that, and who's really running things, and how small businesses have suffered, and the explosion of cheap outsourced labor, it's a way to still, I don't know how to explain it, but I should know this better because I talk about it all the time, but I do it more in practice when looking at people. So with doctors, do you have the right people in the right roles, and are you paying them a living wage to do it?
Right.
If you cannot pay them a living wage to do it, how are you doing that? Do you have any way to give them a performance-based bonus? Let's look at your life and how you're doing things, because I'm going to tell you, I've met people who've tried to outsource everything out of their clinic, even their clinics. Like, they'll have the one people that they have, and then everything gets outsourced, and they don't want to pay more than $5 an hour for that. And then they want to talk about being these great people, and I'm like, how is that? Do you know those people that you're paying? How are their lives? And they'll tell you this story, and then I will go and interview the people, and then you find out that they're not making it on that. They've got 10 different jobs and blah, blah, blah. And then I'll bring back that, oh, I didn't realize that, So for the amount of money it actually takes and what you're getting, and if you could get see, ethical entrepreneurs, when you really think about that, they are bringing in more high value people. They're able to charge more money and they're getting more service and they don't have to edit as much. They spend less time managing their business, being in the business, and more time looking at the business as a whole. When you start getting your HR part right, because I've never went into crisis, like had to go into a thing where either an investor pulled me in saying, we have a poorly performing business asset. Can we get you in to tell us where we're really at with this business? Or a buyer or broker. That's usually how I went in there. Rarely, I would say probably maybe 10% were people who just called me because they heard me. Usually it was angels or VCs or business brokers or buyers. I never went into a place in crisis, never, where it was their service, the doctor wasn't healing people, or their website was bad, or the billing was really the reason. Our coders are just not doing the right code, or our widgets are wrong. It was never of any of that. It was always HR. That is always what was tanking that clinic or that business, because I did both, every time. And when we got it right, it was all okay. And it all,
And as soon as
ethics are
you,
the heart of it. Sorry.
oh yeah, no, go ahead. As soon as you recognize the value in the people who are working with you and you compensate them in that space, they don't want to leave. You have created a family, a unit, a beautiful place for people to work the moment that you recognize the value. And I think so often in healthcare, especially, you know, I've worked in hospital-based clinics, I've worked in private practice clinics, I've worked in all the different settings. And the moment that you downplay the value of your receptionist or your aides, you're done.
I'm going to tell you, front desk is the biggest money winner or loser in most practices. Is
100%.
that front desk? But it's not just that, more in smaller businesses. It's trying to figure out how can we still survive and pay them, because the world has changed. It is harder now. I'm not going to pretend that there's just money on trees and you can just pay them more. But when you have the right systems in place and you can get scalable income, scalable leads that are coming in, you're using the right scripts and things like that, then it's easier to figure out where that money's coming from, because then you can scale it up and you can start doing it. You don't just do it overnight without an idea. If you know your numbers and you have a system, then ethical entrepreneurship is the plan to where you feel really good about what you're doing and really good about how you're investing. And when you talk about the big ways like hospital systems, these administrators pulling down these $200,000 to $500,000 or more salaries a year is just insane to me in healthcare. They're so top to management heavy and talking about, well, we just can't afford to pay these nurses. And I'm like, you can't afford not to pay these nurses. Like, what are you even talking about here? And and then Luigi comes and now everybody wants to have a talk about it. So in 1978, the CEO, and we're talking all, so the complete entire, if you were to do it down, CEO pay ratio to the average employee was 25-1. Now in 1978, CEOs had private jets. CEOs were partying up. CEOs were going to Mexico and having a great time. CEOs were building homes and being rich. And it was 25-1. It was wild times when you think about it. That led to the 80s, right? Do you know how much that CEO who unfortunately lost his life, his pay ratio was? It was 329-1.
I believe it.
And then if all the, there are answers and solutions to everything we're doing, but we've got to talk about that a lot more. And we've got to be a little bit more wilder about how unhappy we are with that. I mean, you can still be wildly rich and not need $37 million a year without bonuses. That I mean, you could still be wildly successful. And that was just one person on this huge board, all making that. But you can't pay for someone's cancer treatment where it says that it is approved. Ethical entrepreneurship. That's not ethical. We all know that's not ethical. It's horrible. Why are we putting up with it? Right. So we need to have better and foster conversations to where we can figure out, well, what's the next plan with that actually really works. One where somebody's not waiting. Like I was just looking, poor Canada's going through a hard time with their healthcare. I was listening to a young girl, she was 28. They told her, you need to get a brain scan because we think you have a brain tumor. She already has a tumor on her spine, so that's why they think she's got this brain tumor. And it's not going to be until 2026. And they told her this and ordered it last year. 18 months, this young, vibrant, 20, like 9-year-old girl's going to have to wait. It's like, well, maybe you'll die. Maybe you'll die. So there are better systems than what we have out there, and I know there are. We just have to start talking about solutions in a way that is where our voices get heard and drown out, the things that get amplified, which are ridiculousness, really, most of those.
Well, and you think about, again, just going back to valuing the people who
Mhm.
work for you, work with you, and also having a really incredible understanding of the service that you are trying to offer and the people that are on the other end of that service line. I mean, having worked in hospital settings, it always totally baffled me that the first people they would send home are the CNAs when there's, when there's extra staff. And I was like, oh my gosh, bring on more CNAs because
Yes.
then your Press Ganey surveys are better because the patient's call lights are not, not being answered for hours. The nurses can actually take a break and put their phone down and go to the bathroom without having to take a patient with them. Um,
Yeah, it's
and
nuts.
just
And in the smaller thing, it's just when you have a plan and you can literally look at your numbers, then you can get creative. And when you actually invest in the people, they are much more willing, they have more bandwidth and are more willing to get innovative. When they don't have fear for their basic food, clothing, and shelter, right? If you can take that away and you can say, hey, there are opportunities. This is our goals. Put your goals up, do your 5, 3, and 1 year goal and reverse engineer it and go, okay, so in 5 years, this is the real estate I want to be in this office, and I would like to take over 2 suites. I will need to have this many staff to do it. This is how much I'll need to be because I think I can pay the staff. These are the 3 new positions I'd want, and I believe market rate for that might be around here because I've looked it up, right? And I would like to get this equipment and maybe these certifications, and this is my overall goal. Like put that big audacious goal up somewhere, and then go to get there in 3 years I need to be here, to get to that 3 year in 1 year I need to be here, and just keep on doing that. Okay, so for 1 year, what are my 4 quarters to get to this goal? And then have everybody see that, and then you're going to get some, ooh, they're going to need an office manager. Well, I would like to be the office manager. What can I do to get to there? And what would that look like? When you become more transparent, which most small businesses are still so afraid of, but more transparency actually leads to more innovation around you. And people saying, well, what if we do this? Or what if we bring this? Because they can see opportunity, a way for them to grow too. So don't be
I love
afraid.
that. I love that so much. You just said they'll be able to see opportunity. And I think that can often be places where people feel stuck in their jobs because they don't see readily available a job for them to move into. But the moment that you create something like that, they can start looking at these goals too and say, well, maybe I can create a position for myself.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and not only are they incredibly excited about that and are going to work, I don't want to say harder, but be more invested and be excited to be there, and in turn that affects productivity. But they can be on the same page and answer the questions like everybody else. They know where you're going and what your goals are. And they can also say, I'm not interested in pursuing that goal with you, and leave the company if it's not the right place for them. And then
Right.
you're never in this space of, oh, well,
Yeah.
Corey's
Being
not doing her
afraid.
job. We've got to have a performance improvement plan.
Yeah. And fear of we can't get rid of Corey because then we'll have to hire and then we'll have to do this. Dude, you
Yeah.
can't afford not get rid of Corey at that point, right? I mean,
Exactly.
not that anybody would get rid of you, right? But
No, I
yeah,
know, but that's why I use me as an example because I just, it's so true. When you have a company that values its employees, values the strengths that they bring to the table, and everybody knows where you're going, I mean, the sky's the limit.
yeah, because even if you're one person right now, so I deal with big clinics that are doing 200,000 to 300,000 a month. Okay. But I also work with we're doing the same thing in 4 months because business is business. It's
Right.
just a different challenges depending on your level. Right. But even if you're starting at zero and you just signed the lease, you still need to do these things because that's what business people have to do. And
Mm.
when you do that and you get that, you will find yourself scaling much more rapidly than the people who live in fear. Like one of my big things I say, I question myself. And if you have one takeaway here, if anything I've said, my whole story, it's I need to ask myself more, what would I do if I weren't afraid?
Yes. Yes. Oh,
What
that's
would I do
wonderful.
if I weren't afraid? And if you and then put that down and then write out your fears and then really look at that a lot more critically. You're going to get rid of the people who are toxic. You're going to hire that person you're afraid, well, what if we don't make payroll and I can't afford them? Well,
Yeah.
man, if you're not growing, then you're dying. So
Right.
in business, so you're gonna do it. Have that plan and just do those things. And then you'll just get bigger and better challenges. It's
I love
harder, but
that.
they're going to be more fun.
Yes, absolutely. So much more fun.
Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure that everybody knows how to get in touch with you. How can they follow you? How can they reach you? And how can
Okay.
they listen to your podcast?
Yes, all you have to do is just go to superclinicproject.com. That's the name of the podcast. And when you go on there, if you click like on her face, I think it takes you the fact page and you can reach me. You can reach me there, but that's how you listen. That tells you all about us, superclinicproject.com. And then I think I gave you two good giveaways. We have a free school on there you can join and you can get tons like the spreadsheets you need and how to track and all that. And then if you want like a free just chat with me, whatever, there's a way you can do that too. So yeah.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for being on today.
This was a fun talk. I feel like I talked too much. Normally I wanted to ask you a bunch more questions. So I hope you can come on our show because I've got things
I
I
would
want to ask
love
you.
that. I would love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks.
As we close out today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Your next level is already within you. If you're feeling that pull for more clarity, more alignment, and more courage to step fully into who you're meant to be, this is your invitation to take the next step. Whether you're an entrepreneur ready to scale or a woman standing at the edge of something bigger, the path forward starts with trusting your desires, owning your worth, and leading with your inner knowing. This is exactly what I offer. Private VIP coaching, and where I guide women inside the 10K Club and 50K Club through consulting with She Sells and Superhuman Selling to help you gain clarity, step into aligned action, and build a life and business that reflects your highest vision. If you're ready to explore what's next, let's have a conversation. Book a free call now at www.corywinn.com/free call. I can't wait to connect with you. Talk soon.